Hey, what's going on? My name is Rob Blossom, and today we're going to set up a Netflix quote-unquote clone that you can use to watch any saved movies or TV shows locally or externally. You'll need a Linux server with a solid connection. You see mine is running through a switch here, a gigabit switch, and I also have a gigabit fiber connection. If you're doing this externally, that will help. You'll also need a solid knowledge of Linux server administration, particularly around HTTP, concepts like reverse proxies, we're going to get into that, and a bit of port management. So please don't expect this to be done if you're someone who is not already pretty savvy in IT. Anyway, let's go. Okay, so the first step is to install Open Jdk 8 or some other Java 1.8 version of your choosing. You can find instructions on installing it on Debian 10 on this site. Effectively, I'm just going to add the adopt Open Jdk repository to my system and then install the JDK JRE. And you should be able to test that this is installed correctly by running java-version. Okay, so now as a non-root user, I'm going to create a folder. I'm just going to put it under data Streama, and I'm going to take the latest release Java file from the Streama GitHub and wget that into the folder. I'm also going to create a bash script called start.sh, and in this we're going to call java-jar and the streamer jar, but between that we're also going to set its server address to 0.0.0.0, so it binds on all interfaces, and the port 3000. You can set whatever port you'd like, but keep that in mind. Okay, you can use the change mode command to add the executable permission to the script, and now run the script, and you should see Streama start on port 3000 after a minute. Then once that's up, I'm going to switch over to another terminal or another tab and run a verbose curl for localhost port 3000. You should see a redirect to the /login/auth page of Streama. That is a correct redirect, and it means that Streama is responding to HTTP requests properly. Okay, so now it's time to pick a web server to sit in front of your Streama instance. I use Nginx since I find it very easy to set up. So inside the configuration, I'm just going to add a new server block that listens on port 8080. I recommend going with port 80 or 443 if you're using SSL. Speaking of SSL, you'll want to enable that and use a certificate and a key that you got. I highly recommend using Cloudflare for your domain. Obviously, if you're using a domain, you'll also need to use the server name directive to tell it which server to listen on, which name server. So the next thing to do is to give it a location with the root block. The / is the root block for the location. And we want to tell Nginx what to do when it gets a request. And what we want it to do is forward that request over to Streama, the Java instance. Okay, so this technique is commonly called a reverse proxy. The idea is that Nginx is acting as a proxy towards the Streama application in the background on your local machine. Now, the problem with this technique is that Streama does not know that it's using a reverse proxy in front of it in order to communicate with it. It really thinks that all the HTTP requests it's getting are just normal HTTP requests. So when it sends, say, a link back to somebody who sent a request, they're going to get a link to localhost back, but we don't want them to have a link to localhost. We want them to have a link to the real IP address of the server or the real domain name. So we need to configure Nginx with a set of headers for it to use to add on to the HTTP request between the phase of it sending the request to Streama and then back to the user. We need to mutate the request and add in the extra information that Streama needs to know about the request. I'm sorry if I'm explaining this poorly, but as long as you understand the basic principle here, then you should be able to follow along fine. Okay, so we have a set of variables here that I've told Streama to use. First, I've told it the HTTP host variable. I've given it the real IP address of the remote. I've given it the forwarded for proxies header. I've given it the server port and the scheme. I've also told it what the upgrade setting is for HTTP, and I've also told it what the connection setting is. So this will basically tell Streama a host of different information about who sent the request for real rather than just Nginx, and also what the request was for, and a bunch of other settings related to it like the port and so on. That way Streama can give us the correct information back. And then finally, you can see I tell it to proxy to use the HTTP version 1.1, and then to actually proxy the request, we use the proxy pass directive. and give it the address of our Streama instance. Now for me, I changed it to 4000 to avoid a conflict I had. For you, if you stuck with the way it was done before, it will be 3000. Okay, so now that you've set that up, the next thing to do is to test the configuration. So run nginx-t, and it should tell you that your configuration syntax is okay. Then go ahead and restart the service. I do it through systemd. And then finally, you can go ahead and do a verbose curl to whatever address your server was. For me, my server has the host name Zayla, so I use that. And I go ahead and open up Chrome and navigate there, and you can see the login box. Hooray. So log in with the default username and password, admin, and go ahead and do the first time setup. You're going to want at a bare minimum to give it an upload directory where things that you upload to Streama will be saved, as well as a local video file directory where all the video files you plan to watch or upload are going to be residing in. So you can choose them here when you set up movies and TV shows, etc. So you'll need permission by the user that's running the Streama Java instance to access those directories. So do make sure that that user can access those directories. That can be a common pitfall, that they're only accessible by root if they're not in the home directory. You can also set the name of your server. And so you can see here, I set it to Izzy's Funhouse. And also you can set the logo and some backdrops, which you can see here. It's kind of silly. Okay, so now it's time to create a nice strong admin password. So top right, user settings, change password. Set that to something nice and strong before you expose it to the outside world. Okay, so let's go ahead and create some content. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on Manage Content and click on either TV shows or movies. I'm just going to create a new movie with some bullshit title. Then click on Browse or Add Files and add in a local file from my set of completely legal and owned items. And when you click play, you should see it play in your browser. There is a caveat. It will, of course, need to be playable through the browser. So it'll need to be in a web-compatible format like MP4 or WebM. I highly recommend setting up a pipeline using ffmpeg that automatically encodes all of your videos into the correct format. You can also bulk import TV shows via seasons. It's a little bit tricky to get working, but there's some decent documentation over on their GitHub. Okay, a few closing notes. You can watch things with other people online by clicking on the little remote broadcast button when you're watching a TV show. It'll start a new session and you copy the link to the session and paste it to them and they can click on it and watch it with you in the browser. It'll sync the play and pause button. I've tried this with varying success. It does tend to work. Huge shout outs to the Streama team. Their development team on GitHub seems extremely resilient and they do a lot of work on this application. So that's awesome. And also, if you have any issues or any problems, please feel free to drop a comment. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, etc., etc. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.